Well, the Fourth Circuit just ruled on the voting law changes that I helped vote for as a senator back in 2013. The liberals, led by Roy Cooper, the aspiring governor who's supposed to be our attorney general and protecting us, is out fighting for the far left, as he always does when it's in his best interest. Otherwise, he's missing in action. Usually, he's missing in action. Never helping out his district attorneys and standing up to get rid of the crazy RJA, the Racial Injustice Act, not standing up for victims. This is just Roy Cooper in general. But let me tell you about what you've heard in the press. You've heard from the liberal drive-by mainstream media that certain portions of our law were cast out. Two minor things that I think should have stayed in. You can still show up, register to vote, and vote in early voting on the same day. We didn't think that was right. We thought if you come in and register to vote, why can't we have the time to make sure you're a legal citizen? Got all sorts of people pouring across our borders. That you're actually eligible and a North Carolina resident to vote in our state. But the Court of Appeals said, no, we think that you should let people show up, register, and vote on the same day. Okay, that be as it may, fine. What was the other thing that they said we did wrong? Well, they said that votes cast on election day in the wrong precinct would have to be counted. In other words, you can show up wherever you want, cast your vote, even though you don't necessarily reside there, and we got to count it anyway. Now, does that make sense to anybody? Well, it does to two guys on the Court of Appeals, apparently. So we're going to have to change that part of our law. But that's it. What about voter ID? Fine. What about all the other changes? Let me give you the laundry list of what you didn't hear about in the news, because they make it sound like, oh, there were all these problems with the law that we passed. No, there weren't. In fact, early voting will remain at 10 days instead of 17. We increased the periods that they're open so that people could work late and still get there to vote, and we shortened the number of days up, but we kept the hours the same. Wow. Wow. Does that make sense? Of course. Photo ID requirement that a person isn't allowed to vote unless they have a photo ID. Sort of like, I don't know, getting on an airplane, cashing a check, driving a car. You have to have an ID to show who you are. 70+% of the people of North Carolina agree with that. Liberal, Democrat, Republican, Conservative, Libertarian, Martian, whatever they are, they agree with it. Wow. But Roy Cooper doesn't. So he's going to appeal this. Roy Cooper. The only people who don't agree with the common sense ID to vote are basically the Democrats in the House and the Senate in North Carolina, and Roy Cooper, our aspiring governor, attorney general. Straight ticket voting has been repealed. Oh, you can't just pull one lever and walk in and vote for a Democrat or a Republican or a Libertarian. You actually are going to have to pull all, oh, that's so hard. You have to click all those levers over and really know who you're voting for. Wow, that's bad. It's the law. It's moving forward. County election boards still aren't allowed to keep the polls open an additional hour on election day in extraordinary circumstances. In other words, you can't have jacklegs in your local county allow people to come in and vote after hours unless the state board of elections approves it. Does that make sense to anybody? Maybe people who aren't trying to rig the vote. Oh, if you're trying to rig the vote, you probably don't like that. Roy Cooper is going to appeal that and try to take it up to the Supreme Court, where I think he'll lose again. County political parties can designate additional at-large poll observers, up to 3 in any polling place. Roy Cooper doesn't like that either. Actually have people to come in and make sure that they're not packing the polls with illegal voters. Boy, that's terrible, isn't it, Roy? And any registered voter in a county can file formal challenges to individual votes on election day in the county. Before, it was limited to someone living in that precinct where the vote was cast. Now think about that. If you're out anywhere as a poll observer and you see people packing in to vote illegally and you want to register a challenge the way the Democrats had it, you had to be registered in that precinct. Well, in a lot of precincts where they might be places where people do pack in, you might not have anybody of your political party. Maybe it's a Republican precinct and it's Democrats. Maybe it's a Democrat precinct and you don't have any Republicans. Well, you couldn't complain before, but now you can. Roy Cooper doesn't like that either. Roy Cooper, come on, get with it. Thank you, Fourth Circuit, for upholding almost our entire law. The couple of things you disagreed with, I don't agree with, but hey, you're the judges. Okay, we're going to move forward to protect your right to vote, to see to it that your vote counts. Legal voters, that's what it's all about. I just wanted to explain to you what the press didn't bother to tell you, because I voted on this law. I believed in this law. I believe in it still. And your right to vote is going to be protected now. We're going to make sure that only legal citizens get to vote. It's only common sense. Just thought you'd want to know.